I am saying to you as Africans, wake up. You are going through a revolution, and you are slipping through a revolution. And by the way, $4.3 trillion using minerals from the DRC, from Rwanda, from Uganda, from South Africa. Why don't we work together as, the Nobel Prizes? For physics last year, AI. For chemistry, AI. This is the revolution, and the African is slipping through a revolution. Shame on you, Africans.
So, Prof, in terms of, you're talking about the transformative impact of AI, but what are the key implementers exit from your perspective and shows a return to your investment?
Yes.
For then the private sector to take on a project. So that's fantastic. And I know that when you're talking about pension funds, they've also got obligations and limitations in terms of what they can do. So it's important that African pension funds show the way for others, such as the ones from Denmark, can then play their role. So I'm going to want Monique to sort of wrap up on the conversation. So I'm going to go to Arthur first. My first question, so Arthur is the former Deputy Prime Minister of Zimbabwe. He's just released 2 books on AI, and that's what we're going to be focusing on. But my first question, so very quick response, not just a yes or no answer. What's going to be more important, do you think, to the future of this continent? The AI or the African Continental Free Trade Agreement?
AI. So let me emphasize this. I'm one of the few who's not impressed by what we've done so far today. We are going through a revolution, an AI revolution. And most of the speakers today did not speak about the AI revolution, except the keynote. A few numbers to show you are going through a revolution. AI this year will contribute 10% of global GDP, $11 trillion, if you are ambitious. If you're conservative, it will contribute 6.4% of global GDP, which is $7 trillion. That's double our collective GDP as Africans. Right now, as we speak today, just Google it or ChatGPT it, the biggest company by market cap is NVIDIA, $4.3 trillion. Check it right now. Ahead of Microsoft, ahead of Apple, $4.3 trillion. They don't do anything else except produce GPUs, NPUs, and CPUs using minerals from Africa, critical minerals from Africa. So I am saying you cannot talk about infrastructure or development. AI is the economy right now. If we talk about economics, if you talk about development finance, you can't discuss the economy without talking about AI. Why? AI is driving productivity per capita. Where you're producing 1,000, now it's 10,000. 8,000, 20,000, an escalator of productivity. Secondly, it's driving efficiency. It's also driving innovation. Just a quick anecdote on this. Goldman Sachs, they now say 95% of their work that used to require a team of 6 people and more per week is being done in 5 minutes by AI. Only 5% is done by human beings. So I am saying to you as Africans, wake up. You are going through a revolution, and you are slipping through a revolution. And by the way, don't assume that we as Africans are going to benefit from this revolution. We have to have agency, where number one, we use AI in agriculture, in mining, in infrastructure, even in our own work as DFIs. It will drive your productivity, it will drive your efficiency, it will drive your innovation. Secondly, we must also be producers of AI systems. We must produce AI systems. We can't just use AI systems coming from Silicon Valley. We must be producers of technology. But more importantly, we want a piece of the pie in terms of the semiconductor industry. NVIDIA, $4.3 trillion using minerals from the DRC, from Rwanda, from Uganda, from South Africa. Why don't we work together as a continent of 1.4 billion people, collective GDP, $3.4 trillion, and all our minerals is one. You talk to Trump as Africa, not Rwanda and DRC, like those guys did recently. We must be able to unlock value from our minerals so that we get a piece of pie of the AI revolution. So I'm not impressed, my brother. So far, I hope you still got a day to go. I want you guys to seriously think about 10% of global GDP coming from one technology. And it gets even more interesting. The Nobel Prizes. For physics last year, AI. For chemistry, AI. This is the revolution, and the African is slipping through a revolution. Shame on you, Africans.
So, Prof, in terms of, you're talking about the transformative impact of AI, but what are the key implementers so that it helps transform key sectors on the continent?
Very important, my brother. Don't put the cart before the horse. We need awareness. We need energy. We need digital infrastructure. We need the cash. We need talent. Right now, China is producing 1.4 million engineers a year. America, 100,000. When you build an LLM like ChatGPT or Grok, you need 100 PhDs in one company. Some companies right now globally are having their own nuclear power plants to produce the amount of energy we need to do the GPUs and NPUs. Now you have load shedding in South Africa, schedule 100. You can't do AI without energy. So there are some critical enablers and drivers. 1, awareness. 2, energy. 3, digital infrastructure, compute resources, cash. And of course, talent. We must get the basics right. But when we do that, we'll be able to drive our economies. The AI revolution is affecting every sector of the economy. You can't discuss the economy without discussing AI.
Okay, so when you talk about the financing, so you look at the DFIs financing the digital infrastructure, and then the commercial banks, the private equity groups, etc., financing the companies that are building the AI solution.
That's part of it. You can also use AI in your own work as a DFI. When you use AI, you're going to be more productive, 10 times more productive. You're going to be more efficient as a bank. You're going to be more innovative as a bank. So yes, fund infrastructure, fund digital infrastructure, fund compute infrastructure, but also use AI as a DFI yourself. Just like Goldman Sachs is saying, 95% of their work is being done by AI in minutes. It used to take weeks and teams of 6 people. So in other ways, we're saying a holistic approach to AI is going to be what is going to drive the African economy. And also we are dramatizing the fact that we must not assume that we're going to benefit from the revolution. We must have urgency. And urgency says, let us deploy AI. Let us also make AI. But more importantly, let us also play in the space of the hardware that drives AI.
Okay, Your Excellency, Monique, if you can wrap up for us what's been discussed, which is the importance of the DFI and the redefining of the development financial ecosystem within Africa, but also, so what Prof said, that we've seen countries, or we've seen the current environment split the country so that everyone's negotiating individually as opposed to as a continental group. Do those trends worry you to some extent, in that it is splitting the continent and we're no longer looking at ourselves as a continental player in terms of our negotiations?
Yes, it's worrisome that we are not realizing through AI is just one example. But when you look also at what these global changes are making to the supply chains, the value creation chains, is the world is being reorganized. And from the fragmentation of yesterday, we are at risk of also again being fragmented today, as we should be actually integrating more so that we have muscle, so that we have critical numbers that are actually put at use, because they are talking of the 4.4 billion people that are also going to be 2.5 or so in a few years. We are talking of a market of 3 trillion today. With FCFTA, we could double it. With AI, I think we could even more than double it. But it's not going to happen if you continue to work in silos. As a companies, as individuals, as countries. Integration, like His Excellency the President Museveni mentioned, is a survival. It's an existential thing for Africa, because each economy taken individually, we are too small. But we need to integrate. And the strategy must come before. What is the strategy? Integration is the strategy. Value chain and supply chain is a strategy. Repositioning on these new things like the AI is a strategy. But how do we get there? Then we need really to make sure that we have an architecture that is responsive to that. The national development banks and national financial sector in general, building up to the regional, building up to the MDBs and other multilateral financial institutions, we need to work collaboratively. We need to be, I would say, intrusive in terms of our being pragmatic and our foresight as Africa. Foresight is a key word. We have looked at the Agenda 2063 for the continent, and foresight is one of the things that we found missing, because we don't see through what are the opportunities and what are the risks so that we can create our resilience. So we really need to come together so that we realize the economies of scale that are meaningful, that we harness our local, regional, and continental capital market. We are talking of the capitalization of our institutions. We need to find a way of crossing borders as financial institutions. The other time, a pension fund was telling us that they are daring to cross the borders. But I don't know to what extent UDB and BRD back in Kigali can be collaborating on some of these. I don't know to what extent we are financing the analytical work that goes beyond the generation of the projects, because it has to follow a strategy. It has to be meaningful and intentional. And it has to be looking at what are the demand side issues that we have to resolve. I liked when you put it at Masu, that these financial institutions need to take a more proactive role in actually doing all that work that is not in the mainstream, but if you don't do it, then you're going to stand there with your capital idle. We need to find a way of coming together and having this collective risk management, collective de-risking systems, create an ecosystem that is going to take us actually where we want to be, because we have invested in the analytical capacity, we have identified these opportunities we have to tackle together, and we have put the structure behind the strategy, because that is where we have been lacking.